Welcome, everybody. Welcome to One Staff Culture Mistake That Could Derail Your Mission. My name is Eric Sanzone. I'm a lead pastor at Grace Bible Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we are very fortunate today to have Mr. Tim Cooper with us from the Table Group. We're gonna introduce Tim in just a minute, but before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about ICN, the Irresistible Church Network. As a network, we rally around 7 distinctives. The first of those being that we are outward facing churches. We are churches that assume we have unchurched people in the room in all of our environments. We are churches that care about leaving the 99 to go after the one, and that is the driving passion of our network. But we're also committed to being strategically organized. And today we're going to talk about healthy leadership. We're going to talk about healthy leadership with Tim. You can see at the bottom there, we are also for our communities. We create irresistible environments for every phase. We prioritize the next generation, and we focus on relational discipleship. But today, I want to encourage y'all with Tim here. We're going to have some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. And this is like getting free consulting with probably the smartest person you'll talk to all week. I know it's the smartest person I'm going to talk to all week for sure. So, Tim, love that you are here. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell them what they need to know?
Super grateful to be here, Eric. And I love my family has been impacted by each of those boxes, right? Outward facing, all of those things, healthy organization, strategically aligned, all of that has benefited. And I have 4 kids in our churches, so it's the prioritizing the next generation is something I'm grateful for every day. But my name's Tim Cooper, principal consultant with the Table Group in Atlanta, Georgia, and super, super grateful to be with you all. Eric, what all are we talking about today? What am I leading with?
We are leading with organizational health.
I love that.
Tell us
I
about it.
love that.
Yeah, give us a
So,
yeah. Tell us what you do.
well, I mean, organizational health is one of those things. I was a pastor, as you know, for 19 years and went through seminary, went through getting my business degree, all that stuff. And organizational health was something I didn't pay attention to. Maybe it was taught to me, but I certainly didn't pay attention to it. And I was fortunate enough to be a client of the Table Group 7 years before I became a consultant with the Table Group. So I have loved that journey of trying to implement the healthiest teams that I can be and be the healthiest leader that I can be. And that interplay of how do we create healthy organizations and create healthy teams is something I just fell in love with. And that's all I do now. I do that full time. Last 5 years, I help mostly C-suites of companies, mostly CEOs is who I'm kind of eye to eye with. And I help them lead hopefully a really healthy team and then a really healthy organization.
Can you, because you have been on both sides of this
Yeah.
conversation, can you tell us what drew you to like, hey, maybe I should think about organizational health when you were on the pastor side of things? What was it that made you think I might need some help or need to learn something?
Well, I mean, the the biggest aha for me was the blind spot of the healthy side of leadership. Like there's 2 sides. If you've read anything that Pat's written, my favorite book, right, is The Advantage. I have a copy right here. The Advantage is kind of the overview of everything we do, but we always start with this really simple premise of you've got to be both smart and healthy. And if you looked at where I spent 99% of my time, it was on the smart side. It was like, how do we have the best strategy, the best discipleship, the best this, the best that? Everything had to be the best, or everything had to be just a little bit better or a little bit better. But what I neglected was the healthy side. And so when a consultant came in and really helped me understand there's this healthy side that is getting in the way of tapping into all the smart side, it was truly, it wasn't a weakness, it was a blind spot. And so as that became more apparent to me that we have to focus on the healthy side, and the 2 biggest levers for the healthy side are we've got to minimize politics and confusion in ourselves, but then the people that we lead. When I heard that for the first time, I was both intrigued and confused because it felt like something that I had maybe wanted to pursue, but I had not been able to pursue up until that point.
Okay, so I'm going to be taking notes as we go, just for me and my ministry. So give us some working definitions on politics. I think we can understand confusion, but what do you guys
Yeah.
you say politics?
Well, those are the two levers. So whenever I'm with a team, so imagine a C-suite or imagine a church leadership team. You've got people and they're there and they represent their roles. But as they're in the meeting, as they're in a team meeting, one of the things I tell them is that on a healthy team, there's no undiscussable topics. So when we get together as a team, it doesn't matter. We take off our department hat, we take off our title, and we are now there to lead the group, the church, the team, the company. And politics is one of the things that gets in the way of us being a healthy organization. It's probably the biggest thing. And we define politics pretty simply. It's just changing what you say based on who's in the room or who's on the Zoom. Hey, see what we did? See?
Hey,
Hey, I'll see myself out.
yeah,
No, it's changing what I mean, we've all been there. I'm as guilty as anything. Like when I heard this the first time, you're saying something and someone walks in and instantly you have to change the subject or the temperature changes. Or I've had to tell this to leaders recently, the CEOs, hey, your team is different when you're out of the room. That's
Mm,
politics. When
mm,
there is people changing what they say or thinking about, I mean, we've all had the meeting before the meeting after the meeting, or if we're doing virtual, the meeting during the meeting. All of those are politics. And we think those are just kind of out there. They're not really, we got to talk about the important stuff or the stuff that we're here to talk about. The politics and confusion are what gets in the way of us being as smart as possible. So our strategy, our mission, our vision, our technology, our finances, all of that is undercut when we don't pay attention to politics and confusion. So the one thing I tell teams you can't delegate is lowering politics and confusion within your organization. So it's a huge thing.
So we're gonna get into the framework, the table group. Is if you were to say like, hey guys, if somebody right now is thinking I have an issue with politics, I mean, I love
Yeah.
that definition, changing what you say based on who is in the room. What's the number one? Do you have like a place you would start? You would encourage a pastor to start if he's thinking or she's thinking, oh man, in my boardroom or on my directional team, man, yeah, that's an issue for us. We're
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage them to start, right? Like there's a million ways we could start, but the thing I would encourage is to prioritize this like as the thing that's most important. We say, if you've read Pat or you've heard Pat, we are an organizational health company, and we think it's the single greatest competitive advantage to any organization. Now, when I was a pastor and I heard competitive advantage, I'm like, that doesn't resonate because I'm not trying to compete.
right.
I'm not trying to compete with other churches. I'm trying to, work with other churches. But it is a competitive advantage against a dysfunctional church. It's a competitive advantage against an unhealthy version of the church that we're leading. So that's the thing that we're trying to compete against is a dysfunctional, unhealthy version. Because Eric, you've heard me say this. People come to work at organizations or churches because of the smart side. They like the vision, they like the mission, they like the staff, they like the appearance, or they've benefited, from the services. But they leave because the healthy side gets neglected.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because leadership, I've done in my 5 years of doing this, I've done tons of exit interviews. I've yet to hear one person from a church, from a business say, there was just so little politics. I didn't really know how to navigate it. Like they were so clear on what I need to do to be successful. I couldn't take it anymore. So all of
Right.
them are like, I wanted to be there and I couldn't take it anymore.
Mm,
I couldn't figure out how to be successful, or it was loudest voice wins, or we would decide something in a meeting and then clearly there was a conversation after it because by the next meeting we had made a different decision.
mm. So let's jump in the four disciplines of a healthy organization,
Yes.
right? From the advantage.
Yep.
Fantastic book. It is dog-eared to death on my shelf right over
Yep.
there. But why don't you start there? Let's start at the top.
Well, Eric, so if back to your question before, like what's the one thing to be healthy? Like how do we get low politics? How do we get low confusion? We've got to have discipline. So the four disciplines of organizational health are just like kind of the disciplines to get healthy as a human. I was at there was a large hospital where I was in a room full of doctors, and I said, "Hey, how many of you know what it takes to be a healthy individual? Like, what are the disciplines that it takes?" And for the ones that were willing to play along, those hands went up. And I'm like, okay, what are they? And they're like, eat right, get good night's sleep, we've got to do these fundamental key things, right? They listed off the important ones. And then I said, okay, keep your hands up if you've been great at those over the last 7 days. Hundreds of doctors, right? Two hands are still up after that. Because it's one thing to know what does it take to be healthy. It's another thing to have the discipline on your team or on your board to do those things. And so when the leader says, this is what's important, we're going to be a healthy culture, the whole church then follows, right? It's not like, oh yeah, that sounds really important. Why don't you do this? Or why don't you take care of that? So the first one, there's four disciplines. The first discipline, and this is I always tell leadership teams their one sentence job description is to lower politics and confusion throughout the church. Like that's their one sentence job description. My one sentence job description is to help leadership teams master the four disciplines. That's it. That's what I do.
Okay.
So the first discipline is to build a cohesive team. So this team, like the team that you lead, should be the safest meeting that you're in. It should be the one where there are no undiscussable topics, where we can talk about anything, where we are willing to talk about ideas, right? Like we can put stuff on the table and talk about them, but we are also not afraid to share the kind truth. We are willing to not have if we are going to build a cohesive leadership team, that's what's going to model what cohesion and health looks like for every team underneath throughout the organization. I have yet to see sub teams be healthier than the top team over the long haul.
Okay.
So it's a high bar of really important. Like we're going to cap what healthy looks like at this top leadership level. So we want to make it a great team with a very, very like kind of a really healthy thing, like a really healthy experience ongoingly. And there is something that I watch a lot of church leaders do, which is they see the unhealth, they see the dysfunction, and they talk themselves out of leaning into it because they think they can outperform the dysfunction of the leadership team.
Mm.
But you can't outperform the dysfunction of the leadership team just because you don't see how that's impacting the teams below you or the people attending or the people leaving. Just because you can't see in the moment how that's happening, healthy teams are going to outperform healthy individuals over the long haul every single time. So we have to build a cohesive team, and it's not done overnight, right?
Yeah.
It's done through discipline. So that's the first one.
So I'm assuming you're talking first about the senior leadership team, and then it would cascade to,
Mm-hmm.
right, and then we would want those other teams.
Yeah.
What, given that I'm thinking about our organization, we have 6 people
Yeah.
on our directional team, and we are building and have built a cohesive leadership team. Given that the rest of the organization isn't going to be in the room with that team while they're meeting, why do you think that I agree with you that that's true? Why is it true that that cascades into the organization if if most people don't get to see those interactions firsthand?
Well, they will get to experience them because if that cohesion only stays in that senior leadership team,
Okay.
it's not really health, right? Like that, I can't get healthy and then my family still experience an unhealthy version of me, right? Like if you just take it to the personal side, if
Okay.
I'm really trying to get emotionally, physically, spiritually healthy, I would hope the people I'm leading would notice and benefit. If not, I don't know that I'm really getting healthy. So just
Ah,
because they might not be in the room doesn't mean they're not counting on them to do this. I tell leadership teams all the time, like, I want you to start imagining that there's a two-way mirror, and on the other side of that mirror is people from your congregation, and they're watching how you have this meeting. And there's the elder board, and they're watching you
right.
have this meeting. And are they going to be on the other side going, yes, they're saying it. They're talking about the stuff. Like, that's super important. I'm so glad they're doing this. Or are they going to be like, oh, wow, they are tiptoeing around a lot of stuff. Like, are they really willing to talk about this? Like, are they willing to go there? Are they willing to have the kind of conversations that they need to have to lead this to be as healthy of a church as possible?
Okay. And we'll go into team more. I have so many questions, but we have four
Yeah.
disciplines. So that's the
Yes,
first
four
discipline.
disciplines.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Give
first
me
discipline,
the next discipline.
build a cohesive team. The
Yep.
next three all have the word clarity in it. So we've got to create clarity, which is super important. Like we have to understand, and Pat talks about 6 critical questions that we need to align on from a leadership's perspective. Um, Notice I said align, not agree. Agreement is overrated. We did not get into leadership to get our way. We are in leadership to be on a cohesive team that aligns around the clarity and then helps that clarity get worked throughout the whole church. So
Okay.
creating clarity is not a one-time thing. When we talk about the six critical questions, I'll go quick through them, but the first one is why we exist, and the second one is how we behave. So those two shouldn't change. Those should be kind of set in stone. Our values and our kind of why we exist really are set in place. That's our culture that people experience, whether they're on staff or just engaging with us. The next two, I like to say they're our strategy, but that's just kind of an oversimplification. But it's what do we do? And then how do we succeed? Those can change more often than the first two, but they shouldn't be changing all the time because that creates kind of a turbulence that's hard for people to follow. And then question five is what's most important right now. And question six is who must do what. But here's how dysfunctional teams do that. They flip the order. They start with number six and they're like, well, who must do what? Did I tell you my role? Like, my title is this. So what's most important right now is directly attached to my role. And how I'm
Mm,
going to succeed is what helps my role. And what I do is based on my role. And now how I behave and why I exist are all attached to my role. So they flip it instead of having it be, hey, we are here for this purpose. This is how we're going to behave. This is what we do. This is how we're successful as a team. This is what's most important right now. Therefore, we're going to do this. Huge
So
difference.
we spent about a year working through those six critical
Yeah.
questions a year or so ago, and it was so what I love about your questions, because we had mission and we had vision and we had
Yep.
values, but when we switched to using those questions, it clarified what did we mean by mission? What did we mean by vision? It's been so helpful. So I
Yeah.
am I'm a big believer, and it was the weeks and months to fight through it. What we thought was obvious wasn't, like, as opposed to adopting somebody else's.
Yeah.
My question for you is, which of those six do you think church leaders struggle
Ooh.
with the most?
Um, well, like any good consultant, it depends, or politician, right? It depends.
Okay, 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 yeah,
So
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I will speak from my experience. I struggled the most with question four, how do we succeed?
Yeah.
Because if I narrowed the scope of how we're successful, people were left out. So
Yes.
if we got down to three strategic anchors, let's say, if there's three strategic anchors that are like, this is how we're going to succeed. Well, now if somebody is like, oh, we should try that, I've got to say no, because I'm like, this is how we're going to be successful. So it's hard to narrow the focus,
Mhm.
but we all know this. We know this intellectually. It's just hardest to apply. But when we decide to prioritize everything, right, we haven't prioritized anything. So that those strategic anchors and getting really crystal clear about what makes us successful, how do we fulfill our mission that we're called for, and then how do we go all in on that? I think that's the hardest one for me, and it's the hardest one with the churches that I've worked with. Just because you leave people, it feels like you're leaving people on the sidelines if you do that part really well. But here's
It
what
was
you just modeled. Wait, but you just modeled this. It's a discipline, not a step. So when you said, oh, it took us months, it took us this, it's like, yeah, I'm not one salad away from healthy, right? Like I need the discipline of eating a couple salads to get to healthy. So you
right.
you said that people treat the four disciplines like the four steps to organizational health, and that's not it. They're the four disciplines. So you modeled that in what you just said because you didn't arrive at those answers, right? All health is a condition, not a destination. So you didn't arrive at those answers. You have been trying to answer those and working it out. And what does that mean? And that's a discipline for that leadership team. That's awesome. I love that. Which leads to the third one.
Yeah.
So build a cohesive leadership team, create clarity, over communicate clarity. This is the one that gets skipped the most. This is the one that kind of gets neglected the most because we talk ourselves out over communicating clarity because we're like they're adults, we don't want to tell them again, we sent the email, we said it once. But over communicate is different than over inform. Very different. When we talk
Okay.
ourselves out of it, we think we have to over inform. Over inform is, I don't remember, in the last couple days I've received terms and conditions, I've scrolled to the bottom and I've hit accept. That's overinform. That's not what we're talking about. I didn't learn anything. I just hit accept. I have no idea what I accepted, but I now am signed up for that. What we're talking about is over communicate, which means there needs to be a dialogue. So,
Okay.
over communicate is the stories that we tell, the questions that we ask, and most importantly, the behavior that people experience from our leadership team is going to over communicate what we believe to be true more than anything else we say. So, if we say humility is really important and people experience our leadership team with a lack of humility, that's going to over communicate something different than our words are saying, which is the
Mm.
quickest way to tank a healthy culture. Having the leadership team live out something different than what we've said will tank any healthy culture quickly. Really, really hard.
So organizational consultants have figured out that hypocrisy in the church is not going to lead to organizational health.
Yeah,
That,
unfortunately,
not,
hypocrisy anywhere is not going to lead to
okay. Okay.
organizational health.
All right. Give us the fourth one. Give
Well,
us the.
and let me say this,
Oh, yeah.
when we don't over communicate our clarity,
Okay.
we are telling people that our clarity is optional. That's what we're saying. By not over communicating it, we're saying, you know what, this is how we're successful, but it's optional. You do what you think's best. So
Okay.
we've got to kind of double down on that over communicate. And then the last one is reinforce clarity. So this is like a flywheel, right? Like these all work together,
Yep.
but reinforcing clarity is more like the
Yep.
human systems.
Okay.
We've all been around the person that gets promoted and everyone gets confused, like, wait, they got the job? Like,
Yeah.
how did they get the job? You know, when our HR systems, so to speak, don't reinforce our clarity, it creates more politics and more confusion. So our hiring, our firing, our promotions, our employee engagement and feedback should all come from what we have said is most important in our clarity. So our
Okay.
values, our how we succeed, all of those things should be what our human systems are built around.
Okay.
So all of this lives in our meetings. So
Hmm.
the rubber band that holds all that circle together, those disciplines together, is our meetings. So
Okay.
if I spend time with a team and their meetings don't improve, I have not done my job.
Mm.
Our meetings are the playing field. It's not how good of meetings and healthy of meetings we have is felt on Sundays. It's felt by everybody at the church. Like our meetings should be like they should be near perfect, which that's a high bar, but that's the bar that should be set because everything is counting on us having really great healthy conflict inside those meetings.
Okay. Well, everybody watching wants to know what makes a great meeting. I mean, you just
Well,
set it up.
yeah.
If that's what holds it together, what are?
Here's my short. So Pat wrote a great book, Death by Meeting, but my shortcut to great meetings
Yep.
is three things: context,
Okay.
conflict, end of meeting discipline. So most teams I'm around, the last 10 minutes of the meeting is kind of a throwaway.
Okay.
But I've seen this. I will say this to every team, especially once we hit January. I will say over the next year, how you start and end your meetings will be more important than anything you talk about in your meetings. But how
Okay.
you start and end your meetings is usually an afterthought. So if we start the meeting, this is something I learned from North Point many years ago, but we'd never really like it took me a little bit to start to apply it to meetings. But predictable environments allow people to show up with the best version of themselves, and
Okay.
we have to make our meetings predictable. So if I show up to the meeting and I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about, is this a brainstorm? Is this a tactics? Is this are we in the middle, like trying to discern stuff? And I'm spending most of the time trying to figure out what this meeting's about because nobody set the context. I
Yep.
don't know how to respond.
Okay.
Then the end of meeting discipline, I'll get back to conflict, but the end of meeting discipline is what every team I'm with, I'm like, if you have a meeting, stop it with 10 minutes to go, recap the decisions. What did we decide? What are we going to say? And what are we not going to say? That will level up so much of your meetings and it will lower politics and it will lower confusion because now, if I'm working for you, Eric, and we end the meeting that way, I'm going and telling my team the things that we listed that we're going to say. And then everybody else on the team is going to go say the things. And now when they talk to each other, like, oh, yeah, that's what I heard. Oh, yeah, that's what I heard. That's lowering politics and confusion because we don't have to come up with some huge communication plan. We just have to have the discipline to end our meetings early. Just about 10 minutes early, stop it and figure out what is it we're going to say. So context, conflict, and end of meeting discipline to me are the thing that will like raise the quality of your meetings almost instantly.
Well, and you just described end of meeting discipline as reinforcing clarity because if we're now
Exactly.
cascading communication, if we're all agreeing, oh, here's the in our meetings we call them the asterisk items. So at the end we say, hey, what are the asterisk items? What does
Love it.
everybody need to know? I'm the worst at it, but
Yep.
'cause- but there are other people who are good at it, and so we just make sure, okay, here they are, and then yeah, then the clarity happens.
Yeah. Well, in meetings, I mean, we'll get into some of this later. Like the working genius is a tool that we use to help reinforce clarity around meetings. But meetings before I was a client, meetings just kind of defaulted to my preference. I didn't know any other way. So it was like, oh, I'm the leader of this team. We're going to have meetings that I find enjoyable. Like I'm leading the meeting. That's what we're going to do. And I was getting in the way of our team really being successful because I was kind of pushing the meetings onto my preferences.
Hmm.
But I have a mentor who so kindly put, I'm not in leadership to get my needs met. So it wasn't about my preferences, like not what do I prefer, it's what does the work require, right? That's a better question for the meeting. Like, how do we set the context around what does the work require?
So by context, we really mean, is everyone clear on why we're meeting? Is this a brainstorming meeting? Is this a tactical meeting? Is this
Yep.
a weekly staff meeting? And that's context that we
Yeah, and then I like to say, so whenever I'm with a team, we create team norms. So
yeah.
like we list those in the beginning, like, hey, this is a brainstorm and we're gonna be really high level and we're gonna talk about stuff at a really high level. But let's remember the norms that we committed to, which is we're gonna argue like we're right and listen like we're wrong. We're gonna
Mm,
say it in the room and not after the meeting. Like whatever those things are we're going to say those and we're going to kind of reinforce those as we go through.
okay. So if someone is interested, they're like, okay, healthy leadership team clarity, like where would you tell them to start with this first piece?
Well, I mean, I would start with your meetings, like, because that is where all this lives. Like, this is not a thing that's aside. Like, this is not an aside, like, oh, let's go to this training or go to this. This is, hey, we're going to start the journey of being disciplined and being healthy. And thankfully that can't happen overnight. Like that is something that's a journey that we're going to start taking. So I feel like everything builds on that kind of beginning blocks. But the best thing to start with is always vulnerability. When Pat's most successful book, The Five Dysfunctions of the Team, the base of that pyramid is trust.
Yeah.
So there are five dysfunctions that we try to help root out of teams because that's what gets in the way of them being cohesive. And the bottom layer of that pyramid is vulnerability based trust, not competency based trust. Like, Eric, I've worked with you a long time. I know that if you say you're going to do this, you're going to do it. That's competency based trust. That's important. But vulnerability based trust is hugely important. Vulnerability based trust is just my willingness to be honest and open about who I am, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and then making it safe for you to do the same. That's that bedrock. I'd start there.
Well, then let's keep going on that.
Yeah.
If the first discipline is a cohesive leadership team,
Yep.
the five dysfunctions of a team is the table group solution to that. I
Yeah.
remember in 2003, I was 28 years old and I heard Pat give the five dysfunctions of a team talk at the Global Leadership Summit and
Yep.
redefined excellent communication. I'd never heard someone give a talk like that talk and lead us through it. Tell us about the five
Oh,
dysfunctions of a team.
well, the thing, so the first one is vulnerability. I've heard that same talk and blown away, right?
Right?
Just blown away.
Yeah.
But again, that was blind spot for me. Like, oh, I'm not paying attention to any of this,
Mhm.
right? And the role of the leader is so important in removing the five dysfunctions. So with vulnerability, I tell the leader of the team, what I want you to do is go first with vulnerability, but go last with opinions. Because if you go first with vulnerability, it makes it easy for the team. It's like you're clearing it, you're like going into the woods, into the jungle and clearing the path for them.
Okay.
But it's the opposite if you lead with your opinions. Right. I was guilty of this so many times where we'd have a function with a team, we'd put on an event, and I'd go up to my team and I'm like, "Hey, I think this is going great. What do you think?" And of course, they're like, "Yeah, great." I mean, half the people left, but it's great. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like
Right.
that inadvertently going first with vulnerability clears the way. Going first with your opinions puts you at a distance from the truth and makes it hard for other people to be vulnerable. So we've
Mm,
got to focus on building vulnerability within the team and building trust.
mm,
Then, because people will do this all the time, like we need to have better conflict. My question is normally like, how's the trust level? Like, what's the trust level? So this will make you uncomfortable in your next meeting if you choose to do this. But have everyone in the room point to the sky, and on the count of three, point to the person that they trust least in the room. Terrible, right?
yeah,
But
no,
they thought of someone, and that is the level of trust that you have on that team. Whoever you have the lowest amount of trust with, now that's the level of trust on that team. I would default to being like, "Oh my gosh, I've known you for so long, like we're great. It's just them I don't really. So I'm just going to come to your office and we'll just be talking about this stuff and we'll advance the conversation, all that." That's politics, right? That's dysfunction. So what we want to do is build trust on the team. The whole team has to build the trust, and it starts with the leader kind of modeling that vulnerability. Vulnerability is a strength, and it's something we talk ourselves out of, but it actually makes it possible for the team to be vulnerable. Once we do that, now we get into what's called healthy conflict.
okay.
Most people have an aversion to conflict, right? So it's, 8 out of 10 in the room are going to be like, I don't really like conflict. Conflict without trust, we just call it dirty politics. It's just dirty
Mm,
politics.
mm,
Conflict built on vulnerability based trust is
yeah.
just the healthy pursuit of the best idea. That's all this
Mm,
is. So
mm,
I am a recovering people pleaser. Like I was a leader that was a people pleaser, and I was more interested in you liking me than I was the best idea at times, unfortunately. But one of the things that I realized, especially about myself and about the people that I was leading, is that healthy relationships are not fragile. When we treat relationships like they're fragile, they become more and more fragile. So, healthy relationships, if my relationship with you is one piece of conflict away from being in the ditch, we don't have a healthy relationship or a conflict problem. We have a trust problem. We have to build trust to get to the
mm.
place where we can have good, healthy conflict. You don't need to start with the conflict. We have to start with building the kind of trust to be able to have that kind of conflict. Once we have that trust, conflict is kind of easy. It's kind of
Mm,
easy because now it's like, I mean, Eric, think about like your closest friend, how hard they would have to work to offend you
right.
because you would give them the benefit of the doubt. You would be like, "Oh, I know what they mean," or "Oh, I know this." Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. They would have to work so hard to offend you. That's what we're talking about on teams: is how do we build the level of trust to the place where we can talk about the most important issues and we're not tiptoeing, we're not worried, we're not nice. Nice is one of my. We want to be kind. Like we want to tell the kind truth. No one on a healthy team ever has to worry about being thrown under the bus because we have the kind of relationships where I don't have to give you a heads up. We can just talk about it because we're talking about the issue on the table, not about the person.
Mm.
Dysfunctional teams have kind of an obsession with whose idea was it or who was the one that said it. It's always like an indicator that we haven't built the kind of trust that we need to build.
So, if a leader, a pastor, somebody watching this, they're realizing we have an issue with trust.
Hmm.
Leader has to go first. Leader has to go first in vulnerability, last in opinion. How how often do you think they can figure that out themselves? And how do you know when you need to get somebody to help you? Like
Yeah, I mean,
any wisdom there?
I'm the most biased person you could ask this, right? But like
Okay.
I think
Okay.
outside help is so great because it gives you the role of being able to participate, not have to structure it and lead it, right? So, but it doesn't have to be like you don't have to hire consultants. It's just finding people that can, people within the church or people within, your sphere of influence that have a experience of doing these kind of things. But trust is built when we focus on it intentionally. So it's like every time I'm with a team. I was with a team Monday and Tuesday that I've been with for years. I still have them go through questions. In Pat's book, we talk about this thing, personal histories, where people just give a snapshot into their history. Or I'll go through the four H's: home, hero, heartache, highlight. Like, okay, just let's take some time and go through this. I've
Yeah.
yet to have a team where
Mm.
everybody's like, oh, yeah, we already knew all that. I've never had it. Every single team, I ask them, I go, did you learn anything new about the people around this table? Every single time. Yeah, we did. So
Mm.
I just did another one because we've been together for all of these. I was like, hey, what's a personal high and a personal low over the last quarter? What's a professional high and professional low over the last quarter? And then what are you looking forward to over the next 3 months? Like, just it does not have to be
Right.
it does not have to be extravagant to build trust. It just has to be intentional and vulnerable.
Okay.
That's what it is. So the leader goes first on those exercises always because they set the tone. With the four H's, we had a leader in Chicago once. He was like, home Chicago, heroes Ditka. Heartbreak was the Bears didn't win the Super Bowl. Highlight was when they finally won the Super Bowl. I was like, so close. Good try. Let's start over. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
got to be vulnerable. It's got
Right.
to come from within. So
Do you,
that's the first two.
so would you encourage teams, you mentioned offsite, so you can do this at an offsite.
Yes.
Would you say build this sort of vulnerability into your weekly rhythm as well, or is it a monthly? Like,
Yeah.
how do you think about
Um,
that
one of
trust
the
going?
one of the mistakes teams make is they think they need to be together for a long time before they start doing these kind of things. But
Okay.
the habits that you start early on as a team are the habits that are toughest to break.
Okay.
So if you're a new team, I'm like, all the better. Have the rhythm of, like we suggest for leadership teams, get away 2 days a quarter. And if you can't structure 2 days,
Days
do
a
a
quarter.
night away. Like once a quarter, get away. And if you can do like the afternoon of a Tuesday and the morning of a Wednesday, do the overnight where you can get a dinner and you can that
Yeah.
time is a multiplier of relationships and trust, right? You tell
Okay.
your stories, you get into some of the meatiest content. Like I prefer 2 full days, but
Okay.
then that's where we're having the kind of conversations where we are building the kind of trust that makes it so much easier to be able to have the kind of conversations we want to have all throughout the year when we know we have those anchor points of 2 days. So I got to move
Mhm.
probably. So
Okay. Well, we're not going to
the
cover everything. That's all right. We're not.
I know,
Yeah,
but
you're doing great. You're doing great.
the first two,
Doing great.
here's what I would tell you as a leader. You get to pick when you have conflict on your team. Do you want to have it before you make the decision or after you make the decision? Every leader I know wants it before the decision. So we have to get people to weigh in before we ask them to buy in. That's why healthy conflict is so important.
Okay.
They've got to weigh in before we ask them to buy in. And we want the conflict before the next dysfunction. So we've got trust, healthy conflict. Now we have commitment. So
Mm.
commitment comes after the decision. And this is what I was talking about before. Agreement is overrated. I am not asking everybody to agree. One of the things I flag very quickly when I'm in meetings is when people go, "Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree?" I'm like, we're going to ask better questions, right? Better questions to get better conversations. A better question is, can you commit? Hey, what's in the way of you committing to this? Because here's what commitment looks like. When you leave the room and go back and tell your team, they might as well have thought it was your idea because of how on board you are with it. That's commitment. That's what we're after on healthy teams. And if you can't commit to the decisions, you can't be in leadership.
Okay.
Being in commitment, like being at that place of commitment, is a requirement to being on a leadership team, on a healthy leadership team. We have to drive home that, hey, we are going to commit to this because healthy teams can course correct. We don't know that it's perfect. We never know if it's perfect or right or the best way. What we know is we're aligned on this is the decision and we're going to make it. So the role of the leader, like it was for vulnerability with conflict, the role of the leader is they have to mine for conflict. But then
Mm.
with commitment, they have to force closure and clarity. That's the role of the leader.
Okay.
And those are hard. Those are hard. But it's like, Eric, you're leading your team and it's clear two of the people don't agree.
Right.
Your job is not to get them to agree. Your job is to say, okay, I've heard enough. I need to make a decision. We're going to do this. Now, can you commit to that decision? Everybody. Not not do you agree? Not that we have made the decision. We're past the decision
Yeah.
line. That
Yep.
decision line is over conflict and before commitment. Now, once
Okay.
we're past the decision, now we need to commit, making a strong decision as a team.
All right, give us the last two.
So accountability, so hard. So accountability, especially, in the church world, it's like it always feels punitive, like I'm in trouble. It's positive and it's proactive, and all it is permission to protect the commitments that we've made. That's all we're talking about on a team when we're holding each other accountable.
Okay.
If we don't make strong commitments, accountability is just down to my preference against yours.
Yes.
It's like, Eric, I don't like that you did this. Well, I didn't commit to that. Like, what are we talking about? But if we've made commitments, it's like, hey, Eric, like, we dream up accountability like it's a 10 out of 10. But
Right.
on leadership teams, we have to be really good at holding people accountable on the twos and the threes. Like, hey, Eric, you're normally super prepared. You're not today. Is everything okay? Like anything going on? Like anything I can help with? Anything, right? That's on unhealthy teams. This is cheesy. I know, Eric, but it sticks. And I love using this with teams. On unhealthy teams, this is what accountability looks like. It looks like, I got you. That's what it
Mm,
looks like. Like, you messed up, I got you. On
mm.
healthy teams, it's like, Eric, you messed up, I got you. Like, I got you. That's accountability. Not I got you. It's, oh man, you messed up, I got you. I'll tell him
Mm.
it was mine. Like, I'll tell him I was the one that felt like we have a
Right.
team that is so solid that it's like on a team. Now, if you're like, oh, we're so far from that, we just have to go down the levels and build them to get to that place, right?
Right.
The
Right.
role of the leader is model healthy accountability. If somebody gives you the gift of holding you accountable, you are on precious ground because everyone is watching. And I don't like accountability done in one-on-ones. I actually don't like one-on-ones at all. That's probably a different, that's a teaser for another day. Um, One-on-ones are the single greatest place where politics and confusion get spread the fastest because we don't run our meetings effectively. We have to advance the work in our one-on-ones.
Woo.
So if we run our team meetings really well and really effectively, we can cut down on the number of one-on-ones and have maybe even longer team meetings. But then holding people accountable is done in a group session. So you're not, because
Mm.
these are healthy relationships, these are not
Right.
fragile. This is not me coming after you. This is, hey, I got you. So we always, every offsite I do with teams, I did this yesterday, we give each other feedback at the end of the offsite, but we do it in a team space. Because here's what happens. If four of us on the team give you, the leader, one piece of feedback, and one other person gives you a differing piece of feedback, the way you receive that feedback is going to be different because you've gotten it from the group. But if that one differing piece of feedback pulls you aside in your office and gives it to you, you're at a really weird spot because now you basically have to take it. You have to do it.
Ah.
One-on-one feedback is less about the person I'm talking to and more about my comfort.
Mm.
Group feedback is about my desire to see you grow into a healthier leader. That's why we
Mm.
prioritize it in the group.
Mm. You
The
probably don't like anonymous 360s then either.
I tell people anonymous feedback is only slightly better than no feedback. And I don't even know if it's almost tied. So
Wow.
when I mean, I did this for years and years and years at North Point, but whenever I did anonymous feedback, I just wrote my name after it. Always, always. Like Tim Cooper, Tim Cooper, Tim Cooper, Tim, like, let's talk. Let's talk. Like
Okay.
yeah, I'm not a fan of anonymous feedback. Let's work to get to a place where feedback is an exchange and it's
Yeah.
built on trust. So
All right, you got to give us the fifth one, and then we'll take some questions.
it's results. And it's like all of this is we're building towards results, but we're building towards collective results. So we're
Right.
building towards a win for you as a win for me, as a win for all of us. When we don't pursue collective results, it's like looking at my teammate and being like, I'm so glad the hole is on their side of the boat, not my side of the boat. It's like, we're sinking, right? That's
Right.
back to that thing I was talking about. You can't outperform the dysfunction of your team. So
Okay.
hugely important. That pyramid, we build on top of it. If you're struggling with one area, go down a level and focus on the one below it.
Okay. We got some great questions here.
I didn't know there was other people here. That's awesome. Great. I
Yeah,
just thought it
yeah,
was you and me
yeah.
talking.
Yeah, you thought it was just I am literally taking notes as we
I
go.
love it.
Here's what great goes right along with what you're saying. We don't have much conflict on our team. How do we
Ooh.
tell if that's just because we agree on a lot of things?
Um, well, I, to me, that's usually around clarity. So if we don't have a lot of conflict, we're maybe not talking about the most important issues. So one of the things Pat talks about in the advantage and death by meeting is having your weekly tactical meeting or your weekly team meeting using a real-time agenda. So instead of the leader, this is what I did for years and years. I guessed at what the agenda should be,
Okay.
right? So I'm guessing for my 7 or 8 staff, what should we talk about? I didn't guess right. I would guess, or we'd send that email. Anybody have any agenda items? No one ever does, right? So instead, we get in those meetings and we say, okay, we set the context. Now for the next 10 minutes, we're just going to go around and say, hey, what's the most important thing going on in your area right now? And we're building a real-time agenda. So that agenda, now we go through in the areas, like we don't go through in the order they came in. It's like headline, headline, headline. And as the leader, you'd say, hey, I want to talk about this one first. And we time box it like
Okay.
10 to 15 minutes per topic. If we can't make a decision, we probably need to take that to a longer strategic meeting
Okay.
versus taking up the whole meeting with that one topic.
Okay.
So that would be
So,
my if there's no conflict, we got to change the system. We got to do whatever we can to shake it up and get conflict in there because they care.
right. So your point is there is conflict. You're just not aware.
Mhm.
We mine, and that was your point, right? It's the leader's job to mine for conflict.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, we're not building consensus. And if people don't feel like they can be vulnerable, like it is really, really hard to speak up. So, there's a book called American Icon, and it's about Alan Mulally, how he turned around the Ford company. And
Okay.
when he was asked, hey, why don't you write the book about how you did it? He said, Pat already did. Like it's called The Advantage. So he used a lot of these things, but Ford was on pace to lose 15 billion in the first year that he took over. And he says he's an overachiever because they did it in the first quarter. But he would get to his team meetings and they would all rate their area red, yellow, green, and everybody would rate it green. Every meeting, he's like, "Well, we're all green. We have nothing to meet." Finally, one meeting, he's like, "Hey, we're all green, but we're on pace to lose 15 billion. So I need someone to be honest." Well, the next meeting, somebody put red, and everyone in the room thought this guy's gone. And what Alan did is he pulled him up to the front of the room and he said, "You're the only person I can trust in this room." And they started having a conversation around it. That person became the next CEO after he left. And the team felt safe to do it. So hugely important. Like we have to create the safe ground to make them feel like they can weigh in on those things.
So good. Do you think there's any difference for the church? Do you think there's a five dysfunction that is hardest for the church? That's
Conflict,
conflict is the hardest
conflict. Yeah.
one. Okay. Tell
Yeah.
us what.
Because people are nice in the way of getting instead of being kind. I'm guilty of this. I don't have to point fingers. I can say me. I was more comfortable talking about people than I was to people. I was modeling fragile relationships instead of building really healthy relationships where we have really good conflict, where I can say, Eric, I don't like I don't agree with that idea. I can't support that idea, or I don't think that's the best way forward. And we talk about it. But then once we make a decision, I go back to my team and I'm like, hey, we talked about it. We talked about every possible solution. And it wasn't Eric decided, it was we decided. Here's what
Right.
we decided. Now that idea has a chance because we decided it. So I just think conflict, but here's the good news. It's hard for almost every business too. It's not just the church.
Okay.
Conflict is really hard because we want people to like us, and that can be really hard. But here's the thing that you have to own as a leader. The thing that got you promoted is not the thing that is required of you to be successful at the next level. You're usually getting promoted because of the thing you're good at over and over and over. And then you find yourself at the top level where you need to be more of a coach than a doer, and you have to be a great teammate. That was not required of you on the way up. So we can kind of drop the assumption that we should know more about this and just lean
Mhm.
into this like, I'm learning a new thing. I'm learning a new role, a new job on how to be effective.
Okay. What would you say to the person in a smaller church who, even though they might be in charge, is also
Yeah.
find themselves to be, they are still a doer.
Oh,
Like they don't have
well,
the option to opt out of hey, they have to do it both.
Uh, I would say the good news about God's will for your life is it doesn't require you to be somebody you're not. So you can
Okay.
just be you. And you don't have to do everything that a North Point church does or everything that another church does. Like you are the shepherd of this smaller church, and that's great. So lean into who God made you to be and figure out how to be the healthiest leader possible, which attracts pretty healthy people. You know who's attracted to really unhealthy, dysfunctional churches? Pretty unhealthy and dysfunctional people, right? So when we at a small church minimize politics and minimize confusion, it creates benefits all over the board.
Okay, we're gonna go with one. We're gonna go with one more question, and it's gonna be a big question. It's
Okay,
gonna put you to the test, Tim. We're gonna put you to the test with this final
do
question.
it.
But before I do the final question, I want to let everybody know that we are going to take December off from webinars here at ICN, but we will be back in January with a fantastic webinar on how strategic plans can help you create clarity. And if you have never created a strategic plan for your organization, you are not going to want to miss this webinar. And
Email?
I'm guessing Cliff has his mic on. What do you think, Tim? You think it's Cliff?
I think it's Cliff.
I think
It's
it's
got to be
Cliff too.
Cliff.
I think it's got to be. I mean, who else would it be?
Right. It's got to be Cliff.
Anyway, great webinar coming up on creating strategic plans with my good friend Matt Johnson. All right, Tim, are you ready for the final question?
Ready?
Give us the 30-second answer to what each of those piece of papers behind you are.
Oh my gosh. They're always changing.
Okay, what do you got?
The
That's what people want to know.
Discipline of Market Leaders, fantastic book. The Ideal Team Player, another Pat book. This is The Advantage on one piece of paper. My wife did that for me. This is The Working Genius. Oh, this is something I'm gonna have to tell you another day. It's one of my favorite things, but it's something I use, kind of, stole and came up with. And then this is The Five Dysfunctions of the Team.
Okay, we have 5 minutes. Can you give us the C's in 5 minutes?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
So,
do it.
okay, there's a book I read called Plays Well with Others. I don't recommend it, so don't write it down. I'm just going to give you the synopsis of it. It's very long for one principle. But here's the principle is that people are really, that they miscalculate reading other people's intentions. So when you think about having good conflict, the person that you guess their intentions the most correctly is your significant other. But here's what the data says.
Okay.
You cap out at 50% of the time. The only thing that goes up over time is your confidence in reading and guessing people's intentions, not your ability to guess people's intentions. So that's the premise of the book. Very simple, very disheartening. So I've got a little, that's hence the tool. So I tell teams this all the time, like, we're together. You're maybe going to get it right 3 out of 10 times. And we're talking about the most important things in the church. And I'm going to misread what you say. So George Bernard Shaw has this great quote that I love. He says, the single greatest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Love that quote.
Yeah.
I think because I've said it, you heard it.
Mm.
That's the fallacy. So what we have to do is I like the 4 C's because they are memorable, they're applicable. What we have to do is declare our intention in communication. So the 4 C's are curious, confused, concerned, and convinced. So Eric, let's say I'm working for you and you come into my office and you say, hey, Tim, hey, why did you put that in the presentation? You just did the presentation for us. Why did you decide to include that? Here's what's interesting. I'm not responding to anything you just said. I'm responding to what I'm guessing your intention is. So if you're convinced I was wrong in putting that in, but I respond like you're curious, now we've created a whole nother problem. I'm like, I thought it'd be funny. I thought it was a pretty good joke. I just put it in, no big deal. And you're like, this guy has lost it. Now there's a major write-up coming, right? Like there's this huge miss. And really it was, I guessed your intentions wrong and you didn't share them to begin with.
Okay.
But imagine the flip. You come in and you're just curious, like, hey, Tim, why'd you put that in the presentation? And I'm like, oh, Eric, I'm so sorry. It will never happen again. It's all and you're like, whoa, like, what are you talking about? Like I'm just asking why you put this in. So a lot of that is handled. We have better conflict and better conversations when I can just you can come into my office and be like, hey, Tim, I'm a little confused. Why did you put that thing in the presentation? I thought we had discussed maybe not including that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't get a chance to tell you beforehand, but I spoke to Cliff and we decided to add that because the person in the room that was dot 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 dot. And you're like, oh, that's
Right.
great, right? And now we've had the conversation. We don't have to guess the intention. I'm actually responding to where you're coming from. I love
So
the
it's
four C's.
only for the person who is asking the question, or it goes,
Both.
it's both ways. Okay.
Both. If we have this language, this is one of my favorite norms to create with teams. Remember when I was talking about norms?
Yeah, yeah.
So at the beginning of the meeting, like, hey, we're going to leverage the four C's, right? Okay, great. So you would ask me, hey, before we get going, Tim, why'd you put that in the presentation? I'd be like, well, are you curious? Like, are you concerned? Because that's going to drastically dictate how I answer this question, right?
So, so just to define the words curious, I'm just genuinely curious, right?
Yep.
Confused, I don't understand. Concerned is tell me what you mean by concerned and convinced.
Yeah, concerned is like, hey, I'm concerned that you included that in the presentation. Like, hey, I don't want to because the worst thing you could do is be like, I'm curious when you're really concerned or when you're really upset. And then convinced is like, hey, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm convinced, so we need to have the conversation at that level where I've already made up my mind that was the wrong move. We need to talk about it. Well,
Okay.
I'm going to approach that conversation so much better than just,
Okay.
hey, why'd you put that in there?
Okay. It's great.
So,
It's great.
four
Tim,
C's.
thank you. Thanks
Well,
for
it's
doing
fun.
it, man. Love it. Love the table
Anytime.
group. Love these materials. It's going to be a fantastic just opportunity to continue to dig into all of these resources. You've given us a lot to think about, and can't wait till we get to do it again.
I love it. Awesome. So great being with you. Thank you all for what you do. I could not be more grateful. I'm with businesses and teams all over the world, and nobody does anything more important than what you're doing in your churches. So I'm so incredibly grateful for what you do.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Tim.